Okay, day 99. Holy shit. Oh, I forgot. Should be up here.
If it weren't for the fact that I found some leftovers, I would have called this the worst outing of all time. We then have to go up against the next gym leader and fellow artist, Berg. But the only art that I'm going to be introducing Berg to is the art of sin, specifically the wrath of my team. After putting his Swadloon to sleep with my spirit tomb, I take it out with a single Dream Eater. Next in Berg's lineup is Dwebble, which is a bit more annoying since it has the sturdy ability. This, of course, means that we're going to leave Dwebble at 1 HP, so that Berg uses a hyper potion, and we have to take it down to sturdy once again. Not exactly the biggest deal in the world, but you hate to see it. Finally, of course, we've got Berg's ace Pokemon lead Vanity, so I decide to swap out into Gluttony. We do actually quad resist any attack that this lead Vanity can throw at us, and on top of that, we have a quad effective Gust, which is flare boosted by 50%, so we can take out this lead Vanity in one hit. After getting my gym badge, I've seen enough Pokemon to receive the Avarice. I then just straight up steal a wide lens from this guy's house, and it's at this point we can finally get to Relic Castle to get what would be our first ghost type Yamask. I name it Sloth, it has a neutral nature, and it's perfect for the Eviolite. I also just want to point out that this lady has to be the most based NPC in any of the Pokemon games. What should I talk about on the first date? Oh, bro, that's so easy. You just, yeah, maybe you should ask someone who is a YouTuber and who actually goes out. Hold on a minute, I actually do go out. I'm Univa's top model, and it's great to be back in my element. And you see, Elisa's not too happy about the fact that we took her title last time, so she's back with a vengeance. So to make sure we have the best chances possible, I level to the level cap and get Drifloon to evolve into Drifblim. And this means that we have one of the most important matches of the run upon us. We have to defend our title as Miss Univa. Elisa starts out with a Molga, so I send in my Eviolite Sloth, and she goes for a Volt Switch that gets a crit on me and almost does half my health. However, I managed to burn some strike on the switch in, but it gets a critical hit pursuit and almost takes out Sloth. Pretty insane that I got crit twice in a row and actually managed to live, but next up I switch in Gluttony, and I decide I need a bit more survivability here, so I go for a stockpile as pursuit does minimal damage. The next turn, Zubstrika hits me with a powerful Volt Switch, but it doesn't do that much because of my stockpilage, and I set up another stockpile to get to +2 defenses. You might think my plan is a bit weird here, but I go for a Hex on Flappy, which doesn't do that much as I get paralyzed, but the next turn it goes for Volt Switch into Zubstrika. Now I am paralyzed here, so I might be unable to move, but I actually managed to hit my Hex and almost take out Zubstrika, which has a Citrus Berry, so it doesn't go down to the burn. Elisa then Hyper Potions, and I unfortunately get fully paralyzed. However, considering that I'm at half health, I take a pursuit very well, and I go for a Hex, taking Zubstrika really low. In fact, the burn gets her down into the red, but she decides to go for a Volt Switch the next turn, switching out into Flappy. This actually gets very close to taking out my Drifblim, and I even get fully paralyzed against Flappy, so I have to swap out into Vanity. And since Vanity's an electric type, it can tank a Volt Switch from Flappy super well as Zubstrika comes in and almost goes down to burn. The turn after that, I get hit by a Pursuit, which doesn't do that much damage because of the burn, and it doesn't matter what move I use here, so I go for Confuse Ray, and it just goes down to the burn. Next, we got a Molga to deal with, and it can't do anything super dangerous to Vanity, so I take it out with a couple of Shockwaves, and lastly, we only have Flappy left to deal with. And since Vanity's pretty low, I switch out into Avarice and gets paralyzed by a Thunder Wave. However, this doesn't actually matter since I don't get paralyzed any of the 2 next turns, and I take it out with an Ominous Wind and Chain Attack combo. And I gotta say, it feels fantastic to defend my title and see my face up on that big screen. This Pokemon's become attached to me. That's why I'm treating it like a friend and not a tool. Well, too bad you don't have a Clef Key, because then you could be doing both. Anyway, next up it's time to challenge one of the most difficult gym leaders, if not the most difficult gym leader in all of Pokemon. And scary enough for us, he starts out with a Crunch that has Crunch, so I start with Eviolite. Gets me down to 5 HP. And at this point, my bag of tricks is completely empty. I go for another Confuse Ray, hoping it hits itself, but it breaks through and takes down Vanity with a Rock Slide. I then swap in Gluttony, who's my only team member who isn't in the red, but I quickly get brought down there by a Rock Slide and hit it with a Hex that doesn't do that much damage. The next turn, I expect Play to go for a Hyper Potion, which puts me in an even worse spot than before, and I only managed to survive burn because of my leftover sealing. But this really isn't good, since Excadrill outspeeds all of my Mons, and the next turn, it can just freely take out Gluttony with a Metal Claw, so that's half our team out. I then go into Sloth, who's left at 1 HP, obviously can't outspeed, and just goes down to a Rock Slide. And this means that all I have left is Avarice, and since it can't outspeed either, that's game over, boys. So since our entire team wiped, that means we have to start over all the way at the beginning. No autograph for you this time, lady. The difference in our team is that Avarice now has an impish nature, which is really good. Sloth is stuck with its neutral nature. Gluttony's also got a neutral nature this time, and Vanity has a modest nature, which is so amazing. So let's see if my revised strategy is enough to get us through attempt 2. Play, of course, starts out with Rock, but this time I decide to lead with Avarice. Rock uses Crunch, but we got a defense boosting nature, and it's not super effective. I do miss my Hypnosis, but the next turn I managed to actually land the hit. I then swap out into Gluttony as Rock stays asleep, and Hex hits it for double damage since it's got a status condition. That's one big threat out of the way. Next is Excadrill, of course, so I swap into Sloth, who has full health this time. I actually managed to dodge the first Rock Slide, then I don't even flinch, and I hit Willowist. This means that I can freely go for Power Split the next turn, and I'm not even below half health, even though I get critted by a Metal Claw. Gluttony comes out next, and I'm thinking I can take the hit well, but obviously I get crit. That's twice in a row once again, and I don't want to get crit a third time, so I swap out into Vanity. And this time I'm actually in a way better position since it's both burned and Power Split, so I go for the Confuse Ray, and even though I get hit, it doesn't do that much damage. Citrus Berry then heals up Excadrill after the burn. I go for an Ominous Wind, and together with burn, it takes it down so low that Clay goes for a Hyper Potion. And at this point, since I know that I can't go down to a crit, I'm just free to spam Ominous Wind, maybe hope for that boost, but Excadrill keeps hitting itself in Confusion, so I actually managed to take it out with Vanity. Lastly, we now have Sand Slash, so I go for the Confuse Ray right away, and it breaks through and goes for a rollout of all things.
69.
I suppose I can't really go for anything else since I'm immune to Bulldoze, but it snaps out of Confusion on the second rollout, so I have to go for the Confuse Ray again and hope that it hits itself. And it actually ends up doing just that, so that breaks the rollout streak, and the next turn I swap out into Sloth, who's got a lot of its health left, but it actually just ends up taking itself out with the Confusion. Phew, that's the 5th badge. I also easily win the World Tournament, after which we have to fight some Plasma Goons. During this fight, Sloth actually manages to get to level 34 through the experience share and evolves into Copagrigus. Then, now that we have the Surf HM, we can go back to Route 4 and search for the Rippling Tiles, where we can actually find a 5% chance to get Jellicent without catching Frillish. I catch it and name it Lust, and it does end up having a really
69.
bad nature, but it is pretty funny to have a level 5 Jellicent. We then make our way through Chargestone Cave so that we can get to our next destination, the Celestial Tower. Here we can talk to Professor Juniper, who gives us the lucky egg, and maybe that's a sign, because I have never been this lucky in my whole life. You see, we're here to find a Litwick, and the first one I find is shiny! I mean, I did find a shiny Rattata in one of my other runs, but I couldn't use it because it wasn't the right type, so I threw the Master Ball at this thing as soon as I could. It even ends up having a neutral nature, which is pretty awesome, and we can pick up the TM for Willowist. And with that done, it's finally time to take on our 6th gym challenge against Skyla. Now, Skyla leads up with her Swoobat, but I've got Vanity, which is gonna make this pretty trivial. I set up a substitute, and the next turn I can take out Swoobat with a single Ominous Wind. Swanna goes down to a quad-effective Stab Shockwave, and Skarmory would too, except it has Sturdy, which makes things a little bit more annoying. Fortunately, though, I'm completely safe behind my substitute, and as Skyla heals, I can take her down to Sturdy again, and eventually we just take her out with another Shockwave. 6 badges down, 2 to go. With that out of the way, I use my Miss Unova private jet to fly to Lentimus Town. While there, we can pick up the powerful TM for Charge Beam. We can also go to the Strange House, and I used to hate haunted houses as a kid. Like, I would never go into one, but in this case, we can get our encounter Banette. Name it Envy, and it happens to have a timid nature, which is terrible since it's a physical attacker. However, we can power up our team a lot by picking up the TM for Shadow Ball and teach it to pretty much everyone. Before progressing, I also pick up a whole ton of shards by spamming Max Repels. This way, we can teach a whole bunch of move tutor moves to our Pokemon. I then start to make my way through Reversal Mountain, and Wrath gets to level 41 through the experience share, which means it evolves into Shiny Lampent. The Dark Musicians of Village Bridge aren't too bad. Now I summon the Dark Musician in defense mode. Anyway, now that we're in Opalucid City, it's time to take on Drayden and his Dragon types, and I think I have just the strategy. Drayden starts out with Druddigon, so I start with Avarice, who's going to be the key to executing this plan. After missing my first Hypnosis and taking some damage from Crunch, I do manage to hit my second Hypnosis, and that's when it starts. I start setting up my Nasty Floods. Spiritomb isn't exactly the strongest Pokemon, but at +6, any Pokemon is really a threat, and I have Icy Wind from the Move Tutor. So naturally, Druddigon falls to an Icy Wind. And here's the thing, Drayden loves to use Dragon Tail, and especially if you use setup moves so that you don't get to keep your boosts. But since Dragon Tail always moves last, and he tries to use it with both his Flygon and his Haxorus, well, it's pretty much an easy win for me. That's our 7th gym badge down, after which Team Plasma shows up, and to be honest, guys, where the heck are Team Plasma whenever you need them? Because I'm always out of ice in my freezer, and instead of helping out, these guys are off playing Space Pirates. You think that's how they recruit people to Team Plasma? Just hand out pretty popsicles? Oh, and did I mention that Team Plasma has ninjas? So they're pirates, ninjas, they used to be knights, so where are the Vikings? Secret tunnel. I wonder where the gym leader... Oh, yeah. Yo, what the? Anyway, the final gym challenge we have to face is Marlin and his water types. And he leads up with Caracosta, so I go into Sloth and go for Willowist, thinking that he's going to be physically based, but of course he's not. So this pretty much means that I just gave this Caracosta a free shell smash. That's pretty scary. In the next turn, I got it down to about 40% by a scald, after which I got with a hex since he already was burned. This means that Jellicent is up next, and my answer to this thing is going to be Avarice. On the turn I switch, I get hit by a brine, which doesn't do that much damage, but the following turn I get hit by a powerful scald that also burns me. I can then put it to sleep with Hypnosis and freely switch into Vanity. And since the Jellicent's asleep, I figure I'll take the opportunity to set up with a Charge Beam, which actually gets me to +1, after which I can just take it out with a Shadow Ball. This means there's only one Pokemon left to face, and that's Wavelord, and since it's way slower than I am, and I have +1, I can just freely take it out with a single Electro Ball.
See you tomorrow for day 100.